I waited 30 minutes for him at the Airy, the ring box on the table, for our 15th anniversary. My husband gave me a key to his new bachelor pad. He said I was 40, washed up, and would never succeed with my writing. What he didn't know was the $2.8 million contract I'd signed just hours before. My name is Ilara, and I am a senior copywriter at Momentum Media. Or at least, that's what my business card said. Tonight, that title felt like a costume I'd forgotten to take off. I was sitting at the Airy, an exclusive rooftop place in Denver where the city lights looked like fallen stars and the cheapest appetizer cost more than my first car. It was our 15th wedding anniversary. I checked my watch again. He was 30 minutes late. The waiter, a young man with a smile stretched painfully tight, had already refilled my water glass 3 times. I traced a microscopic scratch on the rim of my wine glass, a tiny flaw in the expensive crystal. It was grounding. Then, Marcus arrived. He didn't walk into the restaurant so much as claimed it, a wave of expensive whiskey and self-satisfaction preceding him. He slid into the booth, his suit perfectly tailored, his charm deployed like a weapon. "Sorry, baby. The sellers on the low-high deal were being difficult," he said, already signaling the waiter for his usual Macallan. He didn't kiss me. "Happy anniversary, Marcus," I said, pushing a small, heavy box wrapped in silver paper toward him. It was a vintage 1960s Omega, one he'd pointed out months ago. He glanced at it and didn't touch it. "Right, anniversary." He reached into his own pocket and slid a small, familiar blue velvet box across the table. My breath caught. After everything, maybe he'd remembered. I opened it. Inside, nestled on the satin, was not a pair of earrings. It was a single, freshly cut key. I stared at it. "What is this?" Marcus smiled, a wide, predatory smile that never reached his eyes. "That's the key to my new penthouse in Cherry Creek. I'm moving in." The restaurant sounds faded, the clinking of glasses, the low hum of conversation. It all rushed away, leaving a ringing silence. "I don't understand," I said, my voice sounding distant. "I've filed for divorce, Ilara." He sipped the whiskey the waiter had just delivered, his gaze cold and assessing. "The papers will be served at the office tomorrow. I wanted to be decent and tell you face to face." "Decent," I echoed. My hands felt numb. "Look." He sighed, leaning in as if sharing a tedious business secret. "You're stuck. You're 40 years old and you're still a copywriter. You're still clinging to that stupid writing hobby in the basement. I need someone who's actually going somewhere. I'm going somewhere. The hobby. The novel I'd poured my soul into for 10 years, writing from 5 to 7 in the morning before our lives started, the pages I hid in a cloud drive he didn't know existed. He must have seen the flicker of pain in my eyes, because he piled on. "You're never going to make it, Ilara. That little book of yours, it's never going to happen. Just accept it. You've peaked." He sat back, satisfied, waiting for the scene. He was expecting the tears, the accusations, the begging. He thrived on that, but he didn't know my secret. He didn't know about the email that had landed in my inbox at 4:02 p.m. Just hours ago. The email from my agent, David, with the subject line, "Hold on to your hat, Ilara." Inside my purse, my phone held the proof. A PDF attachment. It was a signed contract from Hachette Books. Not just a book deal, a 2-book deal. The final advance, after a week of frantic bidding, was $2.8 million. I had printed a copy, tucked it into an anniversary card, and planned to give it to him over champagne. I'd imagined his shock, his pride, his sudden fawning respect. I'd imagined us celebrating, finally, my success. I looked at the man across the table, this stranger who had just pronounced me a failure. I looked at the key to his new life, and I looked at the unopened gift I had bought for him. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply closed the velvet box, pushing it back toward him. "I see," I said. My calm was not what he wanted. It was a disruption. He frowned, his confidence faltering for just a second. That's it, I see. I nodded, pulling my coat from the back of the chair. Yes, that's it. I left him there, sitting alone among the city lights, a man who thought he had just destroyed my world, entirely unaware that he had just set me free. I don't remember the drive. I remember the headlights blurring, the cold Denver air stinging my face through the cracked window, but the streets themselves were just smears of light and shadow. My hands were locked on the steering wheel, the leather imprinted on my palms. I was on autopilot, a ghost navigating a city I no longer recognized. The only thing that felt real was his voice, a perfect, clear recording playing in my head. You're stuck. Alara. You're 40. You'll never make it. 15 years. 15 years of championing his deals, of hosting his insufferable clients, of shrinking myself to fit into the box he'd built for me. All of it erased by a key in a velvet box. My car stopped. I was outside the hearth. The closed sign was lit, but I could see Zoe inside, mopping the old wooden floors. She owned the place, built it from scratch, and it smelled like real food, like burnt rosemary and smoked paprika. It smelled like safety. I must have been a sight, because when she looked up and saw me through the glass, she didn't smile. She just dropped the mop, walked to the door, and unlocked it. I stumbled in, the warmth of the restaurant hitting me. Before I could even take off my coat, Zoe was behind the bar, pouring 2 heavy shots of bourbon. She pushed one toward me. Drink. I did. The fire that spread down my throat was the first thing I'd felt since I left the Airy. He left me, I said. The words sounded stupid, small. Tell me, she said, leaning against the back bar, her arms crossed. Zoe was all sharp angles and sharper instincts. I told her everything, the 30-minute wait, the unopened gift, the key, the penthouse in Cherry Creek, and then the words that stuck in my throat like glass. He said I was stuck, that my writing was a stupid hobby. He said I'd never make it. Zoe was silent for a long moment, her dark eyes drilling into mine. Then she let out a string of curses that would have made a sailor blush, ending with, I always told you he was just an empty suit with a cash register inside. He filed. Zoe, he's already filed. Her anger evaporated, replaced by the cold practicality that had made her restaurant a success. Okay. Alara, practicality, money. What's the status? I don't know, I whispered, the second bourbon warming my hand. He controls everything, the joint accounts, the brokerage. He moves it all around for his flips. He said the house in Lohi. He wants to sell it. Fast. Of course he does, she snapped. He wants to cash out before you can get a lawyer to look at the books. He's going to bleed you dry. I started to tremble. The shock was wearing off, and the terror was setting in. He was right. I was a copywriter. He was a real estate developer. He had the power, the lawyers, the aggression. I had a salary and a half-finished novel. No, that wasn't true. Alara, talk to me. What? I looked up from my glass. He's wrong. About the book. Of course he's wrong. Honey, it's brilliant. No, Zoe, he's wrong. I took a shaky breath, the secret feeling huge and impossible on my tongue. I didn't tell you. It happened so fast. David put it up for auction last week. Auction? What auction? The auction ended yesterday. Hachette bought it. A 2-book deal. I finally said the number out loud. $2.8 million. Zoe's glass stopped halfway to her mouth. She just stared at me. Her face went through 3 distinct emotions, total disbelief, dawning comprehension, and then a slow, magnificent smile that spread across her face. She started to laugh. It wasn't a giggle. It was a deep, guttural, triumphant roar. That absolute, she gasped, slamming her glass on the bar. Goddamn idiot. He just walked away from the winning lottery ticket. He just told the goose that laid the golden egg to get lost. Her laughter was infectious, and a hysterical bubble of it rose in my own chest. We were both laughing, half sobbing, in the middle of her empty restaurant. Then, Zoe sobered up. Wait, the money. Where is the money? The laughter died in my throat. It's coming. The contract is signed. I signed it today. But the first advance? The big one. It won't be in my account for another 10 business days. David said that's standard. 10 days. Zoe's face went grim. 10 days. We both understood. Marcus, desperate to sell the Lohi house and lock down his new life, had a 10-day head start. He had 10 days to liquidate our assets, hide his money, and force me into a corner. 10 days to ruin me before my $700,000 armor arrived. He's going to bury me, I whispered. No, Zoe said, grabbing her keys from the counter. He's not, but we have to move faster than he does. I woke up to the smell of stale bourbon and old coffee. I was on Zoe's sofa, a scratchy wool blanket pulled up to my chin, and my phone was buzzing angrily on the floor. My neck ached, my head pounded, but the dread was sharper than any physical pain. The phone screen was a nightmare of notifications from our joint bank account. Alert wire transfer initiated. Alert wire transfer successful. Alert your account balance is below the required minimum. I fumbled with the banking app, my fingers shaking so badly I could barely type the password. The numbers that loaded onto the screen made no sense. The account we used for savings, the one we'd painstakingly built for emergencies, was gone. A single, massive outflow. A wire transfer of $150,000. Destination, Marcus Vance Developments, LLC. He had emptied it. All of it. Then, a new text message pinged at the top of the screen. From Marcus. Took my cut for the new project. Your share is still there. Don't make this difficult. I navigated back to the summary page. My share. He had left me exactly $3,140. The mortgage on the Lohi townhome, due in 6 days, was $4,200. He hadn't just left me. He had financially suffocated me. He was draining the oxygen from the room, ensuring I couldn't even afford to exist for one more month in my own home. The house he now wanted to sell. It was a classic pincer movement. He was starving me out. My breath hitched. I grabbed the phone and dialed David, my agent in New York. It was 2 hours earlier there, barely 7 in the morning, but I didn't care. He picked up on the 4th ring, his voice thick with sleep. Ilara, what's wrong? It's... David, the money, I choked out, pacing the small floor of Zoe's office. The advance. I need it. I need it right now. Today. What, Ilara? What's going on? Did you read the contract we just signed? He's taking everything. My husband. He's draining the accounts. David, I don't even have enough to pay my mortgage. I need that money transferred. Please. There was a heavy sigh on the other end of the line, the sound of professionalism clicking into place. Ilara, listen to me. I can't. Even if I called the head of finance at Hachette right this second, it wouldn't matter. The payment has to be processed by accounting, approved, and routed. It's standard procedure. It's 10 business days. 10. There is no way to make it go faster. 10 days, I repeated, sinking onto the edge of Zoe's desk. I looked at the calendar. 10 business days. That felt like a lifetime. It's ironclad. Ilara, the contract is signed. The money is yours. It just takes time. I hung up, the sterile, unfeeling language of standard procedure echoing in my head. 10 days. Marcus knew I didn't have 10 days. I saw his plan with perfect, horrifying clarity. It wasn't just spite. It was strategy. He knew I was just a copywriter with a salary. He knew he controlled the liquid assets. He was initiating a financial shock and awe campaign, designed to make me so desperate, so terrified of foreclosure and ruin that I would accept any scraps he threw me. He would force me to sign a quick, cheap settlement. He'd make me agree to sell the house immediately, take a tiny buyout, and in exchange, he'd graciously forgive my share of the debts he'd just manufactured. He would be free, rich, and clear in less than a week. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a new email. The sender was Kensington and Trove, LLP. The subject line was Vance v. Vance expedited mediation proposal. My blood went cold. I opened it. Ms. Vance. On behalf of our client, Marcus Vance, we are writing to schedule an expedited mediation session to resolve all outstanding marital assets. Our goal is a swift and amicable resolution for both parties. We have availability to meet tomorrow, November 13th, at 10 a.m. Please confirm your attendance tomorrow. He wasn't giving me 10 days. He wasn't even giving me 2. He was moving on me right now, before I even had time to find a lawyer, let alone the money to pay one. Zoe was already on the phone when I showed her the email. She wasn't talking to a lawyer. She was talking to her bank manager. I don't care about the penalty. Just make it liquid. I need it by noon. She hung up and looked at me, her face set. Okay. I'm leveraging a piece of the hearth. It'll give us $25,000 in cash by this afternoon. Zoe, no, I can't let you do that. That's your restaurant. Shut up. Ilara, this isn't a discussion. You're family, and the family is under attack. You are not going into that mediation tomorrow alone, and you are not hiring some cut-rate family lawyer who wants everyone to find common ground. You're going to hire the shark. Mrs. Harlow. The name was spoken in hushed tones in Denver's wealthiest circles. She wasn't a lawyer, she was a legend, a woman who didn't just win cases, she annihilated opponents, she cost a fortune. Zoe's $25,000 was just the retainer. Somehow, Zoe's assistant got me an emergency consultation that same afternoon. Client financial emergency, she'd said on the phone, a phrase that apparently unlocked any door. Harlow's office was on the top floor of a steel and glass tower. It was silent, sterile, and cold. Mrs. Harlow herself was a woman in her late 60s, impeccably dressed, with eyes that looked like they were calculating my net worth. I started to cry. I couldn't help it. The stress, the humiliation. Harlow held up a perfectly manicured hand. Stop, please. It wasn't unkind. It was just efficient. I do not need your tears, Ms. Vance. They are a depreciating asset. I need numbers. I have read the email from your husband's counsel. They are moving to gut you. Why? I took a deep breath, pushing the emotion down. I explained the situation, the 15-year marriage, the control, the transfer of the $150,000 this morning. Harlow nodded, unimpressed. Standard procedure for a high-conflict narcissist. He's created a financial crisis to force your hand. What assets do you have that he doesn't know about? Nothing, I said, then hesitated. Well, one thing. I told her about the book, the 10 years of writing in the dark, the auction, the contract. Harlow, who had been lazily spinning a gold pen, stopped. Her eyes locked on mine, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of genuine interest. When, she said, her voice dropping, was this contract executed? Yesterday afternoon, I signed the final PDF. My agent countersigned. It was done. Hours before Marcus told me. Before he filed, Harlow clarified, a small, tight smile playing on her lips. This is beautiful. Beautiful, David said it's standard. The money won't be here for 10 days. Marcus will have already. You are thinking like a victim, Harlow interrupted, standing up to look out the window at the mountains. Stop it. You are now a corporation. The money is irrelevant. The contract is the asset. Under Colorado statute, since it was executed prior to the divorce filing, that $2.8 million contract is marital property. My heart sank. So he gets half. He would, she said, turning back to me. If he knew it existed, but he doesn't, which means we have leverage. He has hidden $150,000 from you. You have hidden $2.8 million from him. It's a lovely asymmetry. She sat down. All business. Here is our strategy. We do not mention the book. Not now. Maybe not ever. We use his own aggression against him. That transfer of $150,000, that wasn't just him being a bully. That was financial malfeasance. We are going to use it to prove he is dissipating marital assets, which will completely discredit him in front of any judge. She leaned forward. Now, tell me about his business. Marcus Vance Developments. Is he clean? I hesitated. I think so. He's very good with numbers. Very careful. No one is that careful, Harlow said flatly. Who helps him? An accountant. Yes, but I thought about the endless business trips, the dinners I wasn't invited to. He has a protege. A young woman. Sienna. Sienna, Harlow repeated, tasting the name. He says she's brilliant, handles all his overseas accounts, his private scheduling. She travels everywhere with him. The classic, pathetic cliché. I'd been ignoring it for years. Harlow didn't care about the cliché. She cared about the mechanics. She handles his accounts. An employee. Sort of. I'm not sure what her title is, but she's been with him for a year. He paid for her apartment. A business expense. He said it was cheaper than a hotel. A real, genuine smile spread across Mrs. Harlow's face. It was terrifying. Wonderful. We don't attack the affair, Ms. Vance. That's messy and judges don't care. We attack the accounting. Forget Sienna the mistress. We're going to find Sienna the illegal wire transfer. Find out exactly how he paid for her. Find out what he paid for her with. Harlow's first move was to call his lawyer and agree to the meeting. Not the mediation, just an informal discussion about the assets at the Low-High house. He'll be arrogant, Harlow had warned. He'll think your willingness to meet without counsel means you're desperate. Let him think it. I walked up the steps to my own home, my key feeling foreign in my hand. The air inside was stale, the silence oppressive. Marcus was in the kitchen, his back to me, looking at spreadsheets on his laptop. He turned, and the smile he gave me was full of condescending pity. Alara, glad you decided to be reasonable. I need to pack a few things, I said, my voice flat. And, you're right, we should talk about the house. Good. He closed the laptop. That's good. The market is peaking. We sell now. We both walk away clean. I've already got a cash offer, 20% below ask, but they can close in 5 days. Clean. He wanted a clean break, after laundering our life savings. I just need to grab my files from the office, I said, moving toward the stairs. Whatever, just be quick. I have a contractor meeting outside in 5. He gestured to the backyard, where a man in a polo shirt was already waiting. We need to discuss the Cherry Creek build-out. He slid the glass door open and stepped onto the patio, his voice immediately rising in volume, arguing about marble backsplashes. He was in his element, commanding, dismissive, loud. I didn't go to the bedroom. I went straight to the home office. His sanctuary. Dark wood, leather, the smell of his cologne, and the shared iMac we used for household budgets, sitting next to his private, encrypted work laptop. He always assumed I was too stupid to know the difference. But for years, he'd used the shared computer for his overflow work, finding it more convenient, and he'd gotten sloppy. I sat in his chair. The screen woke up. His business accounting software was right on the dock. I clicked it. A password prompt. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I thought about him, his arrogance, the core of his being. What was the one word that defined him? I typed SUCCESS1. It worked. The program opened. It wasn't the clean, tidy set of books he showed our accountant. This was the real ledger, the messy backstage. I felt sick. For years, he'd been using our joint savings account, my name on it. my salary contributing to it as collateral for his high-risk commercial loans. He was leveraging our entire future against properties that were failing, moving money in and out in a shell game designed to hide his losses. He wasn't the brilliant developer he pretended to be. He was a gambler on a losing streak. Then I saw it. A folder on the desktop, separate from the main accounting files. A folder he must have created in a hurry and forgotten to hide. It was labeled Project Sienna. My heart stopped. It wasn't a project. It was a person. I clicked it. Inside were not blueprints or design specs. There was a single PDF, an invoice, and a corresponding wire transfer confirmation. The invoice was from a shell corporation I'd never heard of, Sienna Designs, LLC. The description of services was vague. Interior design consulting fees, Cherry Creek penthouse. The amount was $150,000, the exact amount he had taken from our joint savings yesterday. But this transfer wasn't from yesterday. It was dated 3 days before our anniversary. 3 days before he'd told me he was leaving. He hadn't just taken the money to fund his new life. He had embezzled it. He had disguised a payment to his mistress, a down payment on their future together, as a business expense, laundering it before he even filed for divorce, using marital property. He was stealing from me. I pulled the small USB drive Harlow had given me from my pocket. My hand was shaking so violently I could barely guide it into the port. I dragged the folder. I dragged the main ledgers. I dragged everything. The progress bar crawled across the screen, a lifetime in 10 seconds. Copy complete. I pulled the drive, slipped it into my bra, and stood up. I walked out of the office, closing the door softly behind me. Marcus was still in the garden, laughing now, clapping the contractor on the back. He didn't even hear me leave. I was living in a box. A 400-square-foot furnished studio that Zoe had prepaid for 3 months. A temporary safe house, as she'd called it. It smelled like bleach and cheap pine furniture. It was the 10th day. I'd given the USB drive to Harlow, who had simply said, "This is the bullet for the gun." Since then, we had been silent. We were waiting. Marcus was not. My phone was a weapon he used against me all day. A constant barrage of emails from Kensington and Trove, each one more threatening than the last. They had a generous offer from a cash buyer for the house. It was a laughably low number. They needed my signature by 5 p.m. today. Then came the text from Marcus himself. A direct hit. "Just sign the offer. Alara, it's more than you deserve. Take it, or I'll make sure you walk away with nothing. You'll have nothing." I ignored it. I ignored the buzzing phone, pushing it to the far end of the cheap laminate table. My focus was on my laptop, on the browser window for the new, private bank account Harlow had instructed me to open. An account Marcus knew nothing about. An account with my name, and only my name, on it. The balance was 0. It had been 0 for 10 agonizing days. My heart was a fist pounding against my ribs. I clicked the refresh button. The wheel spun. The page reloaded. Balance 0.0. A cold sweat broke out on the back of my neck. David said 10 business days. This was the 10th day. What if it was delayed? What if something went wrong? What if Marcus filed an injunction I didn't know about? My phone buzzed again. Final offer. The email subject line screamed. I clicked refresh again. My breath caught in my throat. The white screen. The spinning circle. Balance 0.00. No, I whispered to the empty room. Come on, please. I was begging a machine. My entire future, my survival, depended on this one digital transaction. My hand was trembling. I put the cursor over the refresh icon one more time. I clicked. I closed my eyes. I couldn't watch the wheel spin. I counted to 3. I opened them. The numbers were there. They didn't even look real. They looked like a glitch, a typo. Balance $700,000. $700,000. I didn't cry. I didn't feel joy. The sensation that washed over me was heavy, cold, and absolute. It was the feeling of a steel door slamming shut. It was the feeling of a shield locking into place. It was the weight of ammunition settling into a magazine. I was no longer the victim. I was the war chest. My fingers, no longer shaking, moved with precision. I clicked transfers. I entered Harlow's trust account number, the one she had given me on a small, embossed card. I typed in the amount, $200,000. I clicked confirm transfer. The money was gone, sent to my lawyer. My armor was paid for. The second the confirmation screen appeared, my phone rang. Not a buzz, a ring. I looked at the screen. David. I picked it up, my voice hoarse. David. Alara. Oh my God, Alara, are you sitting down? His voice was electric, vibrating with a level of excitement I had never heard from him. What is it, David? Okay, legal just read the full manuscript. The full thing. They didn't just love it. They are losing their minds. They think it's a franchise. They think it's a... Ilara, they want to renegotiate. The $2.8 million is the floor, not the ceiling. I gripped the edge of the table. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the movie rights. They want to trigger the film rights escalation clause. Paramount's parent company got wind of it. They think this is a bidding war. Alara, they're talking about upping the total package. This is going to be much, much bigger than we thought. I was in Harlow's office an hour later. The news from David was still ringing in my ears. But I didn't tell her. It was irrelevant to the plan. The only thing that mattered was the balance in her retainer account. I showed her the printout from my new bank account, the $700,000 deposit, the $200,000 transfer to her. She glanced at it, satisfied. Then she looked at the USB drive on her desk. This, she said, tapping the drive. Is the weapon that? She nodded at the bank statement. Is the ammunition. Now we fire. She buzzed her assistant. Get Kensington and Trove on the line. No, don't. Just draft a notification. To counsel for Mr. Vance. Please be advised that we have been retained by Alara Vance. All further communication will be through this office. Furthermore, we are this afternoon filing an emergency motion to request a temporary injunction and asset freeze, citing dissipation of marital assets. See you in court. It wasn't a letter. It was a declaration of war. By 2 p.m., we were in front of a judge. It wasn't a trial, just an emergency hearing in a small, crowded courtroom. Marcus's lawyer, a slick man named Trove, was there, looking annoyed and superior. He'd clearly been pulled out of an expensive lunch. He addressed the judge first. Your Honor, this is a clear-cut case of retaliation from a scorned wife. Mrs. Vance is attempting to disrupt Mr. Vance's legitimate business operations as petty revenge for a standard divorce proceeding. This is frivolous, and we will be seeking sanctions. The judge, an older woman with iron-gray hair and an expression of profound boredom, looked at Harlow. Mrs. Harlow, dissipation of assets is a strong claim. What do you have? Harlow stood. She was not dramatic. She was a surgeon. We have facts, Your Honor. Exhibit A joint bank statement for Mr. and Mrs. Vance, dated 1 week ago. Exhibit B, a wire transfer, dated 3 days prior to Mr. Vance filing for divorce, moving $150,000 from that joint account. Exhibit C, an invoice from a newly formed shell corporation, Sienna Designs, LLC, for consulting fees. Exhibit D, the wire confirmation, showing that $150,000 was paid to this shell corporation, effectively laundering marital assets for personal use before a declaration of divorce. Mr. Vance did not transfer his cut, Your Honor. He stole his wife's. Trove jumped to his feet. Objection. This is a simple business transaction. Sienna Designs is a legitimate vendor for Mr. Vance's new development. The judge held up her hand, silencing him. She looked at the exhibits Harlow's paralegal had handed her. She looked at the date on the wire transfer. She looked at the date the LLC was formed less than a month ago. She looked at the invoice, with its comically vague consulting fee. She looked at Trove. A legitimate vendor. You say an interior designer that required a $150,000 prepayment 3 days before your client blew up his 15-year marriage from a joint account he was about to shield in a divorce proceeding. The judge's voice was quiet, but it cut through the room. I'm not an idiot, Mr. Trove, and I don't appreciate being treated like one. She picked up her gavel. Emergency motion is granted. I am signing a temporary injunction, effective immediately, freezing all business accounts associated with Marcus Vance and Marcus Vance Developments, LLC, all of them. They will remain frozen pending a full independent forensic audit, to be paid for by Mr. Vance. We are done here. She banged the gavel. Trove's face was white. He was staring at Harlow, who was calmly packing her briefcase. He didn't understand what had just happened. I did. Marcus's entire life was built on leverage and cash flow. His Cherry Creek penthouse, the one he'd left me for, the one he'd used our savings to fund, was an active construction site. The freeze meant he couldn't make payroll tomorrow. He couldn't pay the suppliers for the marble he'd been arguing about. He couldn't make the interest payment on his high-risk construction loan. His loans would be called in. His credit lines would be severed. His contractors would walk. With a single signature, the judge hadn't just paused his business. She had destroyed it. He was ruined. It took less than 6 hours for the call to come. I was back in the studio, drinking Zoe's good bourbon out of a cheap water glass. My phone rang, and his name flashed on the screen. Marcus. He was violating Harlow's order, contacting me directly. This was exactly what she said he would do. I let it ring 3 times, then picked up. Hello? The voice on the other end was unrecognizable. The smooth, baritone confidence was gone, replaced by a raw, ragged panic. Ilara, what did you do? I said nothing. What did you do? He almost shrieked. My accounts are frozen. All of them. My payroll is due tomorrow. The bank is calling my loan. You're ruining me. This is insane. It's a temporary injunction. Marcus. Pending an audit. I kept my voice calm, cold, as if discussing the weather. A misunderstanding, he yelled. That transfer? The $150,000? That was a legitimate business expense. It was for the Cherry Creek design. You don't understand business. Ilara, you never have. You have to call this off. I don't think I do. Marcus. Listen to me, he said, his voice shifting, trying to find a gear that still worked. He dropped into a low, pleading tone, the one he used to use after a fight. Ilara, baby, please, call off your attack dog. This Harlow woman, she's a psycho. She's trying to destroy us. Us? I almost laughed. There is no us. Marcus, you made that clear. Okay, he said, scrambling. Think about our 15 years. Think about everything we built. You don't want to do this. You're not this person. This isn't you. You're right, I said. The woman you thought I was wouldn't have done this. But that woman is gone. His panic turned to acid. The manipulation had failed, so he reached for the threat. It was his last, most reliable tool. You stupid woman, he hissed. Don't you get it if I go down? You go down with me. I'm leveraged to the hilt. If my business fails, we lose everything. The house, the cars, all of it. The banks will seize the Lohi house. It'll be foreclosed. You'll walk away with nothing. You're cutting your own throat just to spite me. He was playing his last card, assuming I was still the woman with a $3,000 bank balance. He was threatening me with poverty, the one thing that had always terrified me. He had no idea I was holding $700,000 in an account he couldn't touch. He had no idea that foreclosure meant nothing to me. I let the silence stretch, listening to his heavy, panicked breathing on the other end of the line. You told me I was stuck. Marcus, I said, my voice as quiet and sharp as ice. You told me I was 40 and washed up. You said I would never, ever succeed. What? What does that have to do with anything? He stammered, confused by the change of subject. "It just looks like you were wrong." There was a long, terrible silence. I could hear the gears grinding in his head, my lack of fear, my sudden confidence it didn't compute. He had no context for it. He was a man with a blowtorch standing in front of a steel wall he thought was paper. And then he did something I had never heard him do in 15 years. He broke. "Please," he whispered. The single word was a complete surrender. The bravado, the anger, the threats, all of it evaporated. He was just a terrified man on a sinking ship. "Ilara, please, what do you want? Just tell me what you want. I'll give you anything." I waited. "The house," he offered, his voice cracking. "You want the house? You can have it. Take the house. It's yours, free and clear. I'll sign it over. Just tell your lawyer to lift the freeze. Please, I'm begging you. Lift the freeze." The conference room at Harlow's firm was a glass box overlooking the city, and it felt as cold as the air outside. This wasn't mediation. It was a surrender. Marcus was there, but he wasn't the man from the Eyrie. He looked 10 years older, his expensive suit rumpled, his face a pale, puffy mask of sleeplessness and stress. There was a visible tremor in his hands. His lawyer, Trove, sat beside him, looking furious at having his client's case so thoroughly imploded. Sienna, notably, was nowhere to be found. Trove spoke first, his voice tight with barely concealed rage. "My client, in the interest of a swift resolution, is prepared to make an extremely generous offer. Mr. Vance will concede the full equity in the low-high townhome, valued at $1.5 million, free and clear of all encumbrances. Mrs. Vance will walk away with the property, debt-free." He paused for dramatic effect. "In return, Mrs. Vance will immediately authorize the dissolution of the temporary injunction, and she will, of course, relinquish any and all future claims to Mr. Vance's businesses or his personal accounts." It was the offer Marcus had screamed into the phone. The house for his company. Harlow didn't even look at me. She looked at Trove. "Not good enough." Trove sputtered. Not good enough. It's the entire marital estate." "It is not," Harlow said, her voice flat. "My client will keep the house, as you've outlined, and," she continued, as if adding an afterthought, "my client will also retain 100% ownership, rights, and all future income derived from her intellectual property, including but not limited to her unpublished literary manuscript, to be designated as her sole and separate property, fully outside of any marital claim." There was a beat of silence. Trove stared at Harlow, then at Marcus, and then he did something I didn't expect. He laughed. It was a short, sharp, ugly sound. "Her hobby," he sneered. "Her little writing project, fine, done. It's worthless. But if it makes her feel better, she can have it. We'll add the clause." He looked at Marcus, who was sweating through his shirt, his eyes darting between his lawyer and the door. All he could see was the ice-cold grip of the injunction. His contractors were suing him, his lenders were calling, his reputation was in ruins. "Yes," Marcus rasped, his eyes fixed on Harlow. "Fine, whatever. She can keep her stupid book. Just get the papers. Get the freeze lifted. Now." Trove nodded, satisfied he'd won the main point. "Then we have an agreement." Harlow's assistant entered, silent as a ghost, and placed a thick sheaf of papers and 2 pens on the glass table. This was it. The settlement agreement. Marcus immediately grabbed a pen. His lawyer put a hand on his arm. "Wait, Marcus, read it." "I don't care," he hissed, snatching his arm away. "Just let me sign." As he fumbled to open the document to the signature page, my phone, sitting on the table, began to ring. The screen lit up. "David." I looked at Harlow. She gave me a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. She knew about the call from yesterday. I answered it. David, I'm in a meeting. Can I? Ilara, no, don't talk. Just listen. His voice was shouting, booming from the phone's small speaker. Holy. Okay. The renegotiation is done. It's over. Hachette isn't just securing the $2.8 million advance, they've officially triggered the film rights escalation clause. Paramount Pictures just read the manuscript. Ilara, they're in a bidding war with 2 other studios. They are talking about numbers that are, this is going to be so much bigger, so much bigger. David's voice evaporated, but the words remained, hanging in the dead, sterile air of the conference room. The silence that followed was so profound, so heavy, it felt like a physical weight. The only sound was the high, thin hiss of the air conditioning, a sound that drilled into the sudden, shocked stillness. I watched Mr. Trove, Marcus's slick, confident lawyer. His mouth was still half open, the remnants of his dismissive laugh fading from his lips. His eyes were fixed on my phone. In a moment of perfect, agonizing slow motion, the expensive pen he was holding slipped from his suddenly lax fingers. It hit the glass table with a crack that sounded as loud as a gunshot. Then, I looked at Marcus. He was staring at the phone, his brow furrowed, his expression one of complete, blank confusion. He was processing the words. Bidding war. Paramount. $2.8 million. The concepts were alien, the numbers impossible. He was a man trying to read a language he did not understand. Slowly, his eyes lifted from the phone and met mine. I watched it happen. I watched the gears turn behind his pale eyes. I saw the exact second the confusion shattered and was replaced by a dawning, sickening, horrifying wave of comprehension. His eyes widened. The blood drained from his face, leaving a waxy gray sheen. He finally understood what intellectual property meant. He understood what her stupid book was. He understood what he had just moments before dismissed as worthless. No, he whispered, his voice a dry rasp. He looked wildly at Trove. Trove, we can't agree to that. That's... No. Trove was useless. He was still staring at the pen he had dropped. He can't back out, Harlow said. Her voice was flat, bored, as if stating the time. The offer to concede the house in exchange for the injunction being lifted was made. We accepted. The clause regarding the manuscript was your counsel's addition. It's a done deal. The terms are agreed upon. No. Marcus tried to shout, but his voice cracked. You tricked me. This is fraud. You knew. He was looking at me, his face a grotesque mask of betrayal and terror. He was seeing me for the first time, not as the wife he'd pronounced a failure, but as a multi-million-dollar asset that had just been signed away. His own phone buzzed violently on the table, a text from a contractor demanding payment, a missed call from his lender. His eyes darted from his phone to the injunction papers, to the terrified face of his lawyer, and then back to me. He saw the financial ruin on one side, the immediate, certain, and total collapse of his entire world. On the other side, he saw the fortune he had just unknowingly signed away. He was trapped in a cage of his own making, built from his arrogance, his infidelity, and his profound, fatal underestimation of me. He had to choose between immediate annihilation and the mere loss of a future he never even knew was possible. I said nothing. I didn't smile. I let the silence stretch, filling the room with his panic. Then, I took the heavy sheaf of settlement papers. I pushed it across the glass table. The sound, a soft, final shush. I placed the pen directly in front of him. He stared at the signature line. His breathing was a ragged, wet sound in the quiet room. I could see the pulse hammering in his throat. He knew he was signing away millions. But he knew, with even more certainty, that if he did not sign, he would have nothing left by sundown. His hand, shaking so badly he could barely grip the pen, reached out. He fumbled with the cap. With a jerky, spasming motion, he signed his name. A jagged, angry scratch of ink. He signed away all rights, all claims, all access to the millions of dollars that would have been half his, all to save the burning wreckage of the life he'd built without me. I took my copy. Harlow took hers. I stood up. The chair made a quiet, definitive scrape on the wooden floor. Marcus didn't look up. He was hunched over, staring at his signature, a man completely hollowed out. I turned, and I walked out of the conference room. I didn't look back. I walked down the silent, carpeted hallway to the elevators. The doors opened with a soft chime. I stepped inside. As the polished steel doors slid closed, my own reflection came into focus. I looked tired. I looked 40. And I looked, for the first time in my life, completely and totally free. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you are tuning in from, so please comment below and share your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it an extra boost by hitting that hype button so more people can hear this journey.